Doug Pederson against Nick Sirianni. Is there an advantage for one of the two teams, in your opinion, John McMullen?
I think Jacksonville has the advantage from this perspective. And I asked Doug this and I asked Nick this. I asked them both.
You got Mac and Mac, McMullen and McDonald here with you on Birds 365. Let me run this one by you, Johnny Mac. It's something we touched on a couple times over the last few weeks, and we actually saw for the first time this past week on Sunday in the game against the Commanders. Will Devonta Smith in punt reception formation be part of the Eagles' game plan again this week? Is it going to be a situational decision that they make because short field, possibility to take it to the house? Is it he's going to do it once a game, every game, no matter what? We'll just figure out what is the best time to do it. I know Michael Clay spoke this week, as all the coordinators do. What was your feel about how Devonta Smith, coming off the mega monster game where he probably should have been offensive player of the week in the NFC, was not, came up short, lost out to your favorite punt returner, kickoff returner, running back / wide receiver from the Atlanta Falcons this past week? How often, if at all, do you think he's going to be back receiving punts?
Yeah, and by the way, really lost out to Brandon Graham because they're not going to give it to the same team. So, I don't know why people get so up in arms. There's so much, politics to players of the week, months of the week. Like, they're not going to go back to back, for instance. They're not going to, so anyway, but that's it's going to be high leverage situations, what the Eagles consider high leverage situations. You probably don't want to see Devonta late because it probably means you're behind. You want a big punt return. In the case of Washington, it was they were backed up and they thought they had a chance for a return. You might see him in those circumstances, but it's not going to be a regular thing by any stretch of the imagination. So, like they used Deshaun Watson later in his career, Deshaun Jackson, excuse me,
right.
Later in his career. If they needed a big return, if they think they can get a big return, sometimes it's the opponent. If you have poor gunners and you're backed up, that might have been their thought process with Washington. I'm not sure how good they are in coverage. If they think they have a chance to break one, you're going to see Devonta back there. Or if they need to break one, you'll probably see Devonta back there. But it's certainly not going to be a consistent thing.
And yeah, we've kind of picked on the Eagles as far as their punt return game, especially their kickoff return game, because you and I agree, and I think most Eagle fans do, not Quez Watkins' forte returning kicks and the like.
No.
And not has not shown that at all in the first three games.
There's an example. I go back to Sean Bradley, at the beginning, and when I was in Tim Tebow. There's another one. Hey, I'll be the first to say Nick Sirianni knows more about ball than me. We'll use ball. Michael Clay knows more about ball than me. I don't know what they see with Quez Watkins as a kickoff returner. I don't know.
Pure speed. That's it. And they're leaving it at that, which is not enough, but that's what they see.
Well, yeah, I meant, everybody, you need to have long speed, but he's not good at it is what I'm trying to say. There's just because you're fast, there's a bunch of fast guys in this league, doesn't mean you're good at it. And he's not good at it. So, they have other players who are better at it. So use them. They might not be as fast. They aren't as fast, and Boston Scott is the guy I point to. He's going to get you what you should get. And that to me is better than the alternative right now.
I agree with you on that one. Their thinking is, and it's the reason why I keep bringing up Devonta Smith, returning punts. They want the home run. They want to knock the ball out of the park. And if the perfect kick comes down and Quez can catch it and get his speed going ahead of time, and those in front of him do the job blocking, and there's a hole that he can get through, maybe he goes all the way to the house.
But I agree with you, Jody. But the difference between those two players is Devonta's good at it.
Right. No, I'm talking about Quez as compared to Boston Scott.
Yeah.
The reason why they're sticking with Quez is because they want the home run. Boston Scott will get you double. And right now, Quez is striking out looking and returning the kicks.
Take the damn double.
Potential of the home run. That's why they're sticking with him.
Take the damn double, Nick Sirianni and Michael Clay. Take the damn double.
You know, I agree wholeheartedly. But their return game has been one of the issues, but it hasn't kept them from winning games.
I'll take a single, by the way, Jody. I'll take the single.
You'll go with the singles when you're up 3-0. That's the way it should be. All right. We've talked about it plenty, and we talked about all the way up until kickoff on Sunday. Doug P coming back to Philadelphia. Purely from what they've achieved, their career, the first 2 games this year. I know it's never an actual matchup, but we do it all the time, members of the media and fans and the like. The coaching matchup. Doug Pederson against Nick Sirianni. Is there an advantage for one of the 2 teams, in your opinion, John McMullen?
I think Jacksonville has the advantage from this perspective. And I asked Doug this, and I asked Nick this. I asked them both. Mike McCoy and Jim Bob Cooter are on Doug's staff in Jacksonville. Nobody knows Nick Sirianni better than those guys, except maybe Shane Steichen. So from that standpoint, I think his staff. So in other words, E.J. Smith was on the show yesterday, and EJ's very smart when it comes to football. A lot of beat writers aren't, to be honest, and they do a good job. No, I'm not. It's not that. I mean, they do a good job.
Taking a shot there, Johnny Mac.
No, and I'm not even talking about Philadelphia. I'm talking in general. You don't have to know about football to write about people and stories and personalities. So some guys don't know that much about football, to be honest. EJ knows a ton about football.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about. It's not a shot at anybody. It's not even needed to do the job, to be honest. You're telling stories. But it helps in my perspective, in my viewpoint. And EJ is really good at that kind of stuff. And I'm glad he pointed out, I point this out all the time as well. Eagles offense is very simple. Very simple. It's not an insult. It just is. So it's not about teams not knowing what the Eagles are doing. It's not about teams being fooled by what they're doing. It's about executing at a high level. It's about having good players. So from that standpoint, it's not about, he knows what Nick Sirianni's doing and he doesn't. It's about, high leverage situations. I just talked about with Devonta Smith. Like Mike McCoy knows what Nick Sirianni wants to do in a big situation. Jim Bob Cooter knows where all the bones are buried, what he likes to do when you need something done. I think that's the slight advantage.
Okay.
That's it.
Fair enough. It's more of a coaching staff versus coaching staff rather than a strict Doug versus Nick kind of matchup. I get what you're pointing at. If the Eagles' offense is simplistic, is that what you said? That's what I took from what you said.
Yeah, it is. It's very simple.
Okay.
It's very simple.
How many offenses in the NFL are more complex?
Not many now. I mean, the game has changed.
That's what I mean.
I talk about it all the time from the defensive perspective as well. Doug would be one of them. Doug has more of a West Coast vibe. Andy obviously would be one of them. They do a lot more. Now, but that said, when Carson got hurt in 2017, the Eagles remade their whole offense for Nick Foles and went to RPO based off and went to the simple stuff, and they were effective with it. So his playbook's probably a little bit bigger. So if you want to go from it, Doug's. So if you want to go from that perspective, and that's from Andy, and that's where he learned, and he learned more of that old school, what I was talking about earlier in the show. And I haven't watched. He may have more for Trevor Lawrence because Trevor Lawrence comes from a system that was simple. So he might be doing different things. I haven't delved that deeply into Jacksonville. But if you're asking me whose playbook is bigger, it's like, I go back to Chip Kelly and the card with S8 on it. That's, and then you had the Cheesecake Factory menu with Doug Pederson. Yeah, the game's changed, Jody. It's not, and I talk about it all the times where you get into these. Well, you've got to go to progression 1, progression 2, progression 3, progression 4, and then you go. No, it's not like that anymore. They teach concepts. They don't teach plays. So you see, where's the free safety going to be on this particular quarter's coverage? Then you know where to go with the football. It's not about Bill Walsh and all the verbiage and all the language. It's a different game. It's not an insult.
No, and it doesn't mean it's a lesser game, even though the play sheet may be shorter, the playbook might not be as thick. The results are the results. I'll judge results rather than preconceived notions every day of the week. And at least right now for the Philadelphia Eagles, the offense is working just fine. Thank you very much.
Number 1 offense in the NFL. So I always go back to Jimmy Johnson. 3 running plays. Go stop them.
Right. The talent will basically end up deciding everything. All right. This week, a full NFL week, no short week, no long week. 1 week from 1 o'clock kickoff on Sunday to a 1 o'clock kickoff this upcoming Sunday. Of course, the game at Lincoln Financial Field. So home crowd. I'm going to go out on a limb with a prediction here, Johnny Mac. There will not be as many Jacksonville Jaguar fans in the link as there were Eagle fans down in Landover, Maryland on Sunday. Only the second home game of the year. How big an advantage is that for the Eagles playing at home this week against?
It's always a big advantage for the Eagles, especially when they're good and the people are fired up. I mean, it's a really, really difficult place to play, and it is still a very young quarterback. Doug knows that. He mentioned that a couple times, and he's going to press that into his team, just what a difficult environment it is. Yeah, I mean, you got to weigh that in. Anytime somebody's coming to the link and the Eagles are good, it's going to be tough for them.
And I think Trevor Lawrence is a very composed young quarterback. He plays a little bit more with a veteran look at him than a guy who's only started 20 games in the National Football League. But he probably hasn't started all that many in front of as raucous a crowd as he's going to see coming up this week against the Eagles. I know I asked John Stolnitz, I asked you the other day, you didn't think the Eagles were going to go to a video tribute. I think the Eagles will because they did that with Andy Reid.
Yeah, I kind of walked that back to I have no idea because I don't pay that much attention to that stuff. So I was going back, did they do one for, if they did one for Andy, I assume they'll do one for Doug, but I don't know. So I don't pay a ton of attention.
Come on, you got your Eagle sword. Don't you have somebody in the PR department who can give you that information?
Well, more, yes, if I had the desire to ask them. But I, that kind of stuff doesn't interest me, to be honest. But
I think it might interest your readers, John.
Well, I don't think it would, to be honest. But there's different, I mean, to me, it's and Doug said this as well. He's like, I mean, once the ball's kicked off, and I think Brandon Graham said this as well. Doug's trying to hurt us, not physically, but Doug's trying to beat us. Doug's trying to, once the ball is kicked off,
that's true.
He's got the wrong laundry on. That's all that matters.
And on the wrong side of the field.
Yeah, you and I had this discussion with the uniforms in the off season, and they're wearing their black helmets. And I'm like, I don't give a flying. You know what? I'm the same way. And I think Ruben was the one who said, I don't remember what they're wearing 10 minutes after the game is over. I'm the exact same way. I have no stinking idea. I mean, yeah, maybe it is blind. Maybe I should care more, but I can't force myself to care more about things like that. So I don't know. My gut is, because I don't care about it, and I'm probably wrong, that they will do something, but I might not even notice because I'm doing the pregame stuff and all that kind of
Take
stuff.
it from a guy who's been dealing with the fans here in town for 30 plus years. This is the kind of stuff they eat up. They're motivated by it. They get into it. They sink their teeth into it. You are 100% right. Soon as the kickoff goes, Doug Pederson's the opposing coach. What he did 5 years ago means zero, nothing, nada. After the game, you can think about it again. It will mean nothing once the game gets underway. But how he is handled by both the Eagle organization and the fans do interest the fans prior to the game getting underway on Sunday. All right, coming up next, we've got one of the all-time great Philadelphia Eagles. He's as good a wide receiver as they've ever had, and he gets to sit next to that Merrill Reese guy every single week.
Yeah,
he sits next to us next.
Quick Batman. That's what I'm calling him. Quick Batman.
He's the quick Batman? Okay, we'll see what Mike calls himself is, his Batman status. Mike Quick joins us next here on Birds 365.